Ooh, welcome to Naked Sales, where we keep our clothes on but strip down sales and present the bare essentials of selling. I'm your host, Chris Miller from Miller Sales Consulting, and today's show is cold calling strategies to book more meetings. Who doesn't want that? My guest is Jeff Mahoney. He's the founder of Cold Call Coaches. And let me tell you a little bit about Jeff. So Jeff has a 30-year track record as a top producing sales representative and sales manager. So he's been there, done that. He has worked for prestigious companies such as Spectrum, MCI, WorldCom, Pacific Bell, MVS Communications, Wiltel Communications, Pactel Meridian, and Grubb and Ellis Commercial Real Estate. As a sales manager, Jeff gained the trust and commitment of his sales team by effectively coaching and training each individual. Under his leadership, his sales teams consistently exceeded production expectations. With a master's degree in education from the University of Illinois and over 30 years experience teaching, Jeff is uniquely qualified as a consultant, trainer, coach, author, and speaker. And at Cold Call Coaches, it is his goal to create excitement around cold calling and motivation to help everyone in sales book more meetings and become cold calling superstars. So I know if you're an individual, you want to be one. If you're a manager, you want them on your team. And so now you know I am so excited to have Jeff here with us today. And who loves cold calling? Jeff Mahoney does. So welcome, Jeff.
Chris, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited to be here. Thanks.
Excellent.
I love your show.
Thank you. It's like the Miller Mahoney show today.
That's
so
it.
We're going to have some fun. Everyone that's here live with us, please feel free to say hi in the comments. Tell us where you're from, what you're up to. And throughout the program, feel free to share your thoughts and comments. We love to see them and share them as well with the group. So don't be shy to engage. We love it, and we're looking forward to it. And Jeff, okay, so we're ready to go. But before we get into some of your tips and techniques, before we get started, why are we talking about cold calling? Because a lot of people are preaching that cold calling is dead. And you can see that all over LinkedIn too. There's polls. Is cold calling dead?
Right.
So Jeff, why are we talking about cold calling? Isn't it dead?
Well, that's a great question. And you're right. I see it on LinkedIn all the time. Everybody's trying to figure it out. And, I've been doing it for a long, long time. And I'll be honest, I wish it would go away and make, we didn't have to do it anymore because it is a difficult task. But I'm going to tell you, according to your words, the naked sales truth is, drum roll, no, cold calling is not dead. It's alive and well. I mean, if you go to any, career site or whatever that are, looking for salespeople, all you see is we're looking for hunters, cold callers, people who can drum up business, right?
Right.
But what I will tell you is this, Chris, it is evolving, okay? Cold calling is evolving into something new with the advent of technology, right? Technology is playing a key role in our abilities to reach out. The old school days, I'll tell you this, the old school days of cold calling, okay, and this is why everybody thinks cold calling is you became a sales rep, you got handed a phone book, right? The yellow pages. And what did they say? Dial for dollars. That's the name of the game. That's the name of the game. Well, today there's so many new technologies out there that are doing a lot of the heavy lifting for us, right? So it's doing the email cadences, right? On automated pilot, right? It's doing the LinkedIn cadences and voicemail. So in a way, I would say, while cold calling is not dead, it has evolved. And now I think you can really call it it's more like warm calling, because all of that technology is doing a lot of that upfront communication. So at the end of the day, you could say cold calling is dead because now automation is helping us make it warm calls, which is good news.
Right. That is great news. It makes it so much better for sure. I'm a big fan of the warm calls and being able to do some outreach and research before and maybe warm up that call, maybe let that person know that they're expecting to hear from me. So yeah, that's awesome. I'm with you, Jeff. We still have to connect with people. There's other ways to do it, but this way is not done. It is certainly not a goner, so it's not dead. Hey, thanks, Kelly and Jason, for jumping in there. Hi, and welcome. All right. So we're talking about sales teams. We're talking about cold calling. You mentioned that, hey, there's ads all over the place. They're looking for business development reps. They're looking for hunters, right? They want to increase their new business. So you have to bring in new clients. Cold calling is one of those ways that you do it. But why should managers really care? I mean, you and I think cold calling is one of the ways to do it, but why should a manager really care about cold calling skills in general? Because there is automation, there is other things they can do. Why should a manager put their focus on how their people are on the phone?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, a lot of sales managers, I think, you're talking about hiring salespeople. I think lots of times they make the unfortunate assumption that if you've got prior sales experience, you know what, you know how to cold call. You know how to cold call, drum up business, and they kind of push that to the side. And they're really more interested in, how much you know about their industry, your ability to work with the clients and close. And unfortunately, they might miss the opportunity to help their salespeople become better. And what I'd like to say to all of the sales managers on this call, and even the sales reps as well, if you get on the telephone with one of your reps managers and you listen to them make calls for like just 1 hour. I'm talking about live cold calls where they're calling prospects and you're listening into each one of those calls. You know what? That 1 hour can really give you a really good assessment of what their skill levels are, what they're being challenged with. And because it's something that we probably don't spend a lot of time with because it's not really that sexy to get involved in listening to cold call coaching. You'd be surprised that even with veterans, Chris, there's a lot of room for improvement. And if you can assess them and then give them the additional training and coaching that they need, you'll find that you can get a big bump in your sales rep's ability to build a pipeline. So that's an assumption that you shouldn't make. Get on the phone and listen to them. And I think you'll really be helpful to your salespeople.
Yeah. And it's so easy now, right? So if you're in office, you go in the conference room, you shut the door, you have your salesperson put it on speaker so you can hear both sides of the conversation because you want to hear what walls they're hitting or what's going on in the other end of the phone. And if you're remote or virtual, you can do what you and I are doing here. You can jump on a Zoom or something and still have that person put on the speaker. You can hear everything.
Correct.
So that you can help coach them through that process. And I think you brought up a really valid point about, what if I have a team full of senior sales executives and they're great? I mean, they know how to build relationships. They know how to grow the accounts, but they might not be that great at doing the cold calls because they don't do it that often. They haven't done it in a long time, but everyone still needs to fill their pipeline. There's always attrition in sales and they may actually need that help. And I love your point about that one little piece, right? Because if you have someone if you have someone that's new or green or not that great at cold calling, all right, obvious, we'll give them some help. If you have someone that's successful in sales, you might not think about that. But if that person is great at every other part of the sales process and you give them a little bit of lift, holy cow, that little bit of lift of success in driving some new business can result in some really big numbers. So when you're talking about ROI on that hour that you're investing, it could be really huge. And, we're in sales, so we like to talk about ROI. Invest an hour and you may get some great returns off of that. So,
and, Chris, if I may, I talked to a lot of veterans. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know, if veterans would even care about this, but through a lot of people that I've talked to, here's what I hear. The veterans say, you know what, Mahoney, 80% of the deals that I get into, I close. I'm that good. My problem is just getting to that person, getting to the decision. That's where I have the biggest challenges. And so, again, I go back to the sales managers on this call. Please, even with your veterans, don't think that they've got all the answers because when you get on the calls with them, you can just give them one or two little tips that can really make a big difference in their effectiveness on the phone. And especially with your superstars, that's going to equate to big dollars.
Right. And if you're listening to someone who's a superstar on the phone, what great information to share with a other person on the team that may need some help. So if you sit with someone and they're just like smoking it, making the calls, now you have intel that you can share and replicate, and that's where you can grow your team, because everybody's strong in different places, that you can share that information. I love that. But you also gave me the perfect segue to ask you about some of the nuts and bolts of this, right? So we have a lot of people in sales on the call right now who have to make so many calls a week, or required to have so much quota of new appointments or new business revenue. And they're like, make this easier for me. So what are some things, let's say 3 things that someone can do to get better at making those cold calls?
All right. This is the fun stuff, right? The nuts and bolts.
Yeah, right.
So, when you asked me this question, nuts and bolts, the thing that came to mind first, and I know this is going to sound, for a lot of people on the call, kind of old school, but it's still probably the number one area where I find salespeople still make a huge mistake, which is dealing with the gatekeeper. Okay? The gatekeeper. Even that word. I mean,
right.
Who came up with that word? Because we call this person who picks up the phone at a corporate location, a gatekeeper. They're a person, and they're really called the receptionist of the company. So the number one mistake that I hear is that sales folks oftentimes say, you know what, my job is to get around the gatekeeper, to get to the decision maker, right? And
yes.
they want to get around the gatekeeper because that's the person who is going to, block them from getting through. They're the barrier to entrance. And I want to encourage everyone on this call to, I'm a drummer, right? So I like to say, change the beat. Do. Change the beat and look at that person as a human being that can actually, help you and assist you get to the decision maker. I'm seeing a bunch of my students popping up. There's Joe. I saw Amy. It's pretty funny. Hey, everybody out there. Thanks for being on the call. This is fun. And they know this. They've heard this from me 100 times. So the gatekeeper is somebody that can assist you. And here's the key. 2 little tips, right? When they pick up the phone, all you have to do is say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. Justin, nice speaking with you. This is Jeff. You know what? I was hoping maybe you might be able to help me out. That's it. If you get anything out of this whole session, ask that person for their name, and then say their name and say, could you help me out? Because in general, 7 out of 10 will actually try to help you out. And all you have to do, Chris, we all know this, but it's good reminders, respect them. This is what they say, because I asked the receptionists. They say, respect me, okay? Be professional and polite and get to the point. Don't play any games. Just give me the reason for your call. And now I will do my best to help you. Try it. You'll like it.
Okay. So I've got a question for you. So someone might be saying, all right, I'm like that. I'm nice to the person I respect because I know that person, well, first as a human being. So I'm just respectful to them in general. But, they have information that I want, or they can help me, or they can block me. So let's say that receptionist says, sure, Jeff, I'll put you through. And you get the voicemail, right? So what do you do? So that's pretty common. I get through. I get Bob's voicemail.
Okay. Well, this is another interesting one too. I've made so many calls with salespeople who say, "Oh, I don't leave a voicemail," and I say, "Oh, well, why don't you leave a voicemail?" Well, because if I do, ready for this? When I call back, they'll see my caller ID. They'll already know the purpose of my call, which is a sales call, and they won't pick up. And I say, the great thing about voicemail, just technology, is it gives you the ability to leave a message of how you can help them, right? What the value you can bring to them. And they listen to it. I talk to a lot of CEOs, Chris, and I say, hey, do you ever listen to your voicemails anymore? They go, yeah, I listen to all my voicemails. And I ask them, do you read your emails? They go, well, yeah, I read my emails. He says, if it's stupid and it has no value, then I won't. So yes, if I get transferred to a voicemail, I leave the voicemail, but I don't usually stop there. There's more.
Oh, now this is where it gets good. This is why I wanted to ask you that question.
That's it.
All right. So we've addressed because again, there's do you leave the voicemail or don't leave the voicemail? I feel like there's two distinct camps of whether people feel comfortable or value in doing that or not. So whatever you do, you left it, you didn't leave it. You say there's more. What's more to do?
Okay. Well, this is kind of my next tip, right?
Yeah.
So you've talked to the receptionist. They've given you whatever information they can. And by the way, they usually, if you ask questions like, can I confirm their email? Can I confirm their direct dial number? If they're allowed to do it, they will. If they're not, they won't. So don't take it personally. Anyways, so now you've got the receptionist on your side, right? And by the way, by getting their name, don't forget to write it down, because you will be calling back. And it's really nice when you call back to say, oh, hi, is this Chris? Oh, hey, Chris, Jeff Mahoney again. So you're building rapport. But my next tip is this. You have another person within that organization besides the receptionist that can be a powerful ally. And that is, you ready? The assistant to the decision maker, usually at the C level, at the C-suite level, okay? And, not every company, is going to be large enough to have assistants for C-level people, but usually at a medium company or a larger company for sure, they do. Ask the receptionist if they have an assistant and if transferred to them. Now, here's what's really cool about this. And I love this. This is very powerful. And most salespeople don't call and ask for the assistant. So the assistant really doesn't play the role of a gatekeeper. And when you call them, you get them on the line, they're usually very just almost like a PR person, right? They love their company and they want to really help anybody that calls. But the great thing is this, you get them on the line, and let's say the gatekeeper's name is Jim. Jim, I was hoping you could help me out. The reason why I'm calling is, and you provide something of value, right? We all talk about our messaging.
Yeah, that's key.
Provide some value. And you'll be surprised at how much they might be willing to help you if what you have would actually resonate with them and what their boss is trying to do. Because oftentimes that assistant has been there, 2 years, 5, maybe even 10 years. And they know everything about the organization. They understand the initiatives and what's going on. So as simple of a thing as say, you know what? It seems to me like we might have something to help the decision maker, right? Could I forward you my email, and could you then forward it on to the decision maker? And I'm telling you, more often than not, they'll say, sure, I'll be glad to do that. And as simple as that sounds, that's powerful, because that communication, that email is now coming from somebody internally, their assistant. To them, your email is going to get attention, right?
Right.
You can even go so far as to say, hey, is there any chance that you keep the decision maker's calendar? And if you do, lots of times they'll even schedule a 5 to 15-minute phone appointment for you if they think the value is there. So The assistant is gold. I've seen salespeople that I've trained this technique on literally I'm not kidding you, transform their performance on the phone and their ability to get into the C-suite and even take them to the highest level of their company in terms of sales, just because they realize the power of the assistant.
Yeah. And so what I'm also hearing is this, it's more than the phone, right? So as you're talking about this, there's before you get to the point of where you're picking up the phone and reaching out to these key decision makers, is doing your research, is preparing value statements, is preparing your content, essentially, your scripts, so that when you get the person you want on the phone, you have the right thing to say. When you're talking to that assistant. You're what is that piece of value I'm bringing to them that will encourage them to help me, whether it's getting an appointment or sharing information or forwarding on something. So there's the prep work too. I'm hearing it's not all just about how good are you on the phone. It's also about the work you put into it prior to getting on the phone.
100%. The messaging is key. We talk about it on LinkedIn every day, right? What's your message? What's your value? 80% of your ability to connect with somebody is how well you communicate with them. So it's what you say and how you say it that makes all the difference. So you're right. It's that preparation before you call to really, ready, personalize the purpose for your call. And yeah, it takes more time, but I don't know about you, Chris, but I'd rather make 25 calls and get two appointments than 100 calls to get 2 appointments. And usually those 2 calls from those 25, the appointments are actually more quality too because of your preparation.
Right. Yeah. And I think that helps you stand out of the pack too, because the people you're trying to reach might be, on target lists of 100 or 1,000 other people. And so that's why it's so hard to reach them, because they're sifting through all these people trying to get some time on their calendar. But if you show up prepared and educated as to what they do, not just what because a lot of, and I get these messages, I'm sure you do too, people think they have a solution without even knowing anything about me or my industry. They're just sort of vomiting up these solutions in their phone calls and their emails. But if someone shows up with a solution where you talked about being personalized, then you get a little more respect too, because you actually know your stuff. You're not a salesperson. Maybe you're seen as a subject matter expert in what you do. So Jeff Mahoney, subject matter expert in cold call coaching, right? Someone else may be a subject matter expert in logistics, and they still may be in sales. But if you can show that piece of you and tie it into this quick little value statement or questions, what a difference that makes. That's all kind of goes together.
Hey, and Chris, and for some of the newer reps on the line, and you talk about subject matter expert. I know when I was new, it's hard to be a subject matter expert in the early days, but
sure,
you still can get with your manager and other people on your team, some of the, star players or whatever, and help them help you with your, like you said, your script and your messaging.
Yes.
Not a script that you're going to be reading, but a script that you're going to be getting into your brain so you can start understanding what conversations matter.
Yeah. And you can always reach out to Jeff too. And while we have everyone here too, so Jeff and I are going through some topics, but feel free, if there's something that you're like, man, I hope they'll talk about this during their conversation today and we haven't gotten to it yet, put it in the comments. We do see them. If you've got questions or scenarios, pop them in there. We'd be happy to tackle them for you. So, okay. So we're talking about cold calling. One of the things that I know makes a lot of people nuts, that's really tricky these days, is those auto attendants. You don't have the receptionist as much anymore. So you've got the dial, 5 for this, and then you dial 5, and then you got to dial 3, and then, you keep trying to get to the person you want. And here's the kicker. Now that C-suite individual has become smart, and they're not in those phone tree menus anymore. Some of them, right? So you get all excited because you're like, I know who the contact person is at my Target account. And Bob Smith is not, in the auto dial in the directory. So there's a lot to that. So what are your thoughts on cold calling and these auto attendants?
Okay. So for all of the managers out there, I'm talking about the CEOs and the vice president of sales. Just so you know, this is a major issue, okay? I mean, your people who are dialing, every day, those cold calls, they are running to this. Everybody's running into this. So this is a real barrier, and it's real. So here's some tips. And you mentioned a few of them, Chris, but I'll just kind of go through them really quickly. When you call and you get the auto attendant, here's how you can take advantage of that system. Number one, when you hear the recording, first, ready, listen to the entire menu. Right? So that you know what all the options are. Don't just pick one up front, because there could be some other ones that could help you as well. So what I do is I listen to the whole menu and I don't do anything, and I usually hang up. Okay? And then I think, okay, what's going to get me to that decision maker? What's the highest probability? So then when I call back, I already know kind of what my strategy is. So some of them are common, but anyways, it's worth repeating. Fundamentals are worth repeating.
Absolutely.
Number one is for me, dial 0 for the operator. Okay.
All right.
If they don't pick up, then ready, go to the dial by name directory. So, press this to dial by name, dial their last name, and it'll transfer you through to them. But a lot of those directories, to what you said, they're out of date. I mean,
Right.
they haven't been updated. So you dial the name and it says, sorry, no extension. So the third one is, this is a fun one. You can call one of the departments, right? So it says for sales, press 1. For customer service, press 2. For accounting, press 3. Now, why would you do that? Because those are departments of people that would typically somebody will pick up. If somebody doesn't pick up with sales, there's an issue with that company. They don't want to pick up with sales. Come on. So the idea is when you go through to say like the sales department, all you do is you say, oh, you know what? I was actually trying to get a hold of Christine Miller. Is she by any chance in the office today? And then you ask a couple quick questions. Do you know her direct dial number or her extension number? Can I just verify the email address? And ready?
I love it.
Could you transfer me? Do you have the capability to transfer me? So now you've got a live human being, which is what's so frustrating is because,
Right.
I'm making all these calls. I'm not talking to anybody, but that person, believe it or not, because they're not a gatekeeper really either, oftentimes that person will, what I call, ready, spill the beans.
I love it. And, I was joking with someone I was working with last week where, in the past, it'd be, you're really excited to make that appointment, right? We're always really excited if you get someone to make the appointment. But on some days, you're really excited just to talk to somebody because we get buried in these auto attendants. Like, I just even want the opportunity to talk to anyone, like bring on a gatekeeper, just anyone. But I'll add a department that I find really helpful is HR. So
Whoa.
HR knows all the employees or has access to it too. So when you're talking about departments, I like to reach HR because I think a lot of people in HR, because of their jobs, are friendly. They're also right. They're not. I love it that you question why do we call these people gatekeepers? Because I just picture like someone armed standing in front of the gate, like But they're not. They're not generally. That's not their job, and they will be helpful 9 out of 10 times too. So that's another suggestion as far as departments. And they could also tell you, Bob Smith doesn't work here anymore, to your point, that these things
Right.
are needed all the time. Or,
That's right.
why are you calling? And it's like, oh, you really don't want to talk to Bob Smith. Who you really want to talk to is this person. And then you might get, oh, great. You just saved yourself a whole ton of time chasing down someone only for them to say, I'm not the right person you want to talk to.
No, that's great. Ditto
Yeah.
on that one. That's a great one. I can't agree more on that one.
Yeah. So as you all can tell, Jeff is a wealth of knowledge, and he's got a list of top 10 reminders for building your pipeline that he's willing to share with everyone. So if that's something you're interested in, put it in the comments or reach out to him on LinkedIn, ping him directly. He'll get it over to you. Top 10 reminders for building your pipeline. Fun little one sheet handy to keep there at your desk. So if that's something you're interested in, make sure you reach out to Jeff or put your name in the comments and he'll get that over to you. So we have, holy cow, I told you, Jeff, time just flies. I feel like we barely started talking about this.
I know.
There's so much more we can talk about it. So we have another minute or two. Any last minute things? I mean, we talked about 3 things that someone can do to get better at making these cold calls. I think we probably hit more than 3, but do you have a last tidbit that we haven't gotten to that you'd really like to share?
Yeah, I do. I like to end with this, Chris. And by the way, thanks for inviting me. This has been really enjoyable. I really like it, and I hope people get some value from this show that you put on. It's been great.
Thank you.
What I want to say is, when it comes to cold calling, which is kind of a dirty word, people don't like it anymore.
Right.
But it's still alive and well, and it's a reality. But here's what I want to say. If you have a bad experience with cold calling, what I would say, it may just simply be ready because you haven't gotten the proper training or coaching. And I mean that because life is, everything that we do successful is because we have a successful process. And we're all intelligent human beings. And if you got the right process, you're going to get the right results. But if you don't have a process, or maybe you're just winging it, right? Then lots of times it's those folks who still struggle with this whole idea of cold calling, and they don't want to do it because they're not good at it. So get yourself a process. And I'll leave you with this. If you get yourself a good process, here's what I say. The process works. Keep working the process.
Right. Thank you. Those are key words. Don't give up because, right, those first few calls, it may land you nothing, but keep working the process because the process will work. So there's already some people that have been popping their names in the comments, Jeff, that are interested in your top 10 reminders for building your pipeline. So keep adding in. If you're watching this on the replay, add it in. Jeff will be checking back. Tag him in your post. He'll make sure that you get it if you're not here live today. And so, Jeff, thank you so much. Now, there may be people here that want to reach out to you for more information, more conversations. How can people contact you? Where can they find you?
Very simple. My website is coldcallcoaches.com. And Christine is one of my coaches.
Yeah, it's great. I'm learning to love cold calls as well. And I'm getting better at it from Jeff's tips as well. And okay, so that's our time for today. Thank you, everyone, for taking a half an hour out of your day to come hang out with Miller and Mahoney talking about cold calling. It's been fun, Jeff. I knew it would be fun, and I hope you all at least walked away with one little thing that you can do differently with your cold calling this week. Be sure to let us know if you do something different. I love to hear the rest of the story. Come back to this post and jump in and say if you tried something and it worked. We'd love to hear about your success as well. And with that, it is Miller and Mahoney out, and I will see you next time on Naked Sales. Have a great week, everybody, and crush those cold calls. See ya.
Bye.